virtual people? Welcome to a very special episode of Fandom Spotlite's VCR Redux, where we take your favorite franchises out of the analog era and bring them back to 2021. I'm your host, pop culture punk Chris Stiles, joined as always by my co-host with the most, film professor Ian Klink.
How you doing, everybody?
And we have two radical guests on the show tonight. First up, film editor Derek Lufkin is here.
Hey there.
Joining him, he's an actor, writer, director, and producer from the upcoming Ill with Katarina Lee Waters and Brian O'Halloran, Not for Nothing with Mark Webber and Lauren Lavera, and Seasons with Eric Freeman and Reggie Bannister. Brandon Brooks is on the show tonight.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you so much for being here, guys. We were planning a VCR Redux of the Lethal Weapon franchise when the world got truly heartbreaking news of Richard Donner's passing. Dick Donner was an absolute legend to anyone who grew up during the home video era. Not just Lethal Weapon, but Superman, The Omen, The Goonies, Scrooge, Maverick. He left behind a cinematic legacy that is nothing short of miraculous. However, when I really think about it, there's no one else I want to see direct a Lethal Weapon movie. There's no one else I want to see direct the Goonies movie. So how do we honor the legacy of the great Richard Donner without shitting all over his beloved IPs? That is today's mission here on VCR Redux. But before we can honor the work of such a legendary man, we need to talk about how it came into our lives and what we love about it. So, Richard Donner movies. What, where, when, why, and how did it first happen to you? We'll start with Brandon and Derek, but that also goes for you guys watching at home. Hit us up with your Dick Donner stories in the live chat. Okay, Dick Donner. How did it first happen to you guys? Was it Superman?
Whoever wants to go first.
No, yeah. Go ahead, Derek.
Let's see. I remember watching Lethal Weapon pretty early, probably middle school. The Goonies was definitely first. Grade school I watched, and I was a big fan of that. And I don't know how I came across Lethal Weapon, but I do remember buying all 4 VHS tapes at the same time from Blockbuster. So it was not too long after Lethal Weapon 4. So 98, 99 is probably when I just bought all 4 of them. And I remember the spine of the VHS said adult action. That's how it was classified. And I've since upgraded to DVDs on those, and I still have the DVDs because they're the director's cuts, which never made it to like Blu-ray or beyond. But Superman, yeah, I saw in high school, really liked it. And another Donner film I really like that's not talked about much is Timeline with Paul Walker and Gerard Butler. Oof. And I think his last film was 2006. I'm blanking on the name.
16 Blocks.
Yeah, I think I saw that when it came out, and I don't remember it too well. Maybe I'll have to revisit it. But
I remember actually seeing it in the theater with you, Derek.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We saw it. You and I saw it in the theater together.
Yeah, I worked at a movie theater for years in the college days, so movies were free to
the dream job. Now, I'm embarrassed to say I haven't seen Timeline or 16 Blocks because I'm so stuck in the 80s and 90s. I'm stuck in the VHS era, whether I want to be or not.
And I'm sorry to say that you're un-American, Chris. So it all works out.
Brandon, do you have any memories of the first Dick Donner flicks you saw?
Yeah, actually, I have a really good one. I think the first time I went to a drive-in was Superman 2.
Oh.
And I remember, it's sporadic, but I remember, I mean, obviously, when you're a little kid, I was probably only all of 5 or 6, maybe, at the time. And I remember it was a drive-in that was about half an hour from where I live now. It's been long gone, as most of them are. And I remember the exact driving up into it. I remember parking, they had the little boxes, the old school boxes that you had to kind of connect with the car radio or whatever.
Ooh, yes.
And then walking, it was a long walk to the and the vending was like not like there's some now that have like some really cool like concessions. Then it was just really just maybe a hot dog, a burger, and like some candy. But I remember it was a long walk from where we were parked all the way to the vending thing. But it was just, like I said, as a little kid, it's something that stuck out in my mind. I remember seeing that and a few other things like Masters of the Universe and some other movies at this specific drive-in. But I think Superman 2 was the first one. So I always remembered it vividly, just sitting and I got to sit in the front seat, like just during the movie, unlike, driving to the theater. And yeah, I was just like a kid in a candy store watching it. And then obviously as it went on, the Goonies, obviously just like millions of people is one of my favorites, just because I think that movie captured innocence, it captured youth. And it was something that I can't imagine any kid that watched it didn't want to go on that journey and go out there and find gold. And we all had probably some friends that like were similar to someone that was in that group, and maybe a brother like Brand that was played by Josh Brolin. So yeah, that's always been a movie that, and I agree with you, Chris. There's been talk for decades about rebooting it or bringing it back or whatever. And I thought it would have been cool if Richard Donner would have given his blessing and would have done it himself with the original cast and maybe a new Stranger Things cast of their children or whatever. But now I really don't really have any with his passing, I really don't have any interest in seeing someone else take it on and kind of, even if it is paying homage to him. I think it's such a classic that, just like other things that have been left alone, I think it should just be left to be one of Donner's treasures. And also, again, it'll probably come up later, but he's the reason for it. Probably one of my favorite horror films of all time. Like, he was the EP of The Lost Boys, which is one of my favorite, not only is it vampire films, but just one of my favorite films growing up. Again, millions of kids were probably in love with Jamie Gertz, as I was.
Yes.
But yeah, it's just a cool freaking film, and it holds up to this day. I'll fight anybody on that, and that's because of Donner. Like, he was the producer that greenlit the film, and for Joel Schumacher. So again, that's something that I still have that poster on my wall of that film. So he's definitely, his legacy will be felt forever, till we're all long gone.
And rest in peace to Joel Schumacher too. He's another guy who just an incredible career, and we lost recently too soon. He didn't live Donner lived 91 years. That's a pretty good life. But Joel Schumacher, people give him a hard time for Batman, and not to diverge too much away from Donner. Yeah. But people forget, like, Lost Boys, Falling Down, The Client, DC Cab, St. Elmo's Fire, Flatliners. Like, Joel Schumacher's done amazing films. The only ones he did I didn't like were the Batman movies that he made. Yeah. And those weren't really his fault. But I always love talking movies with you, Brandon. So much of what you just said is absolute poetry to me. So yes, and I totally agree. I actually was fortunate enough to do a Q&A panel, to moderate a panel with Kerry Green and Sean Astin from the Goonies. And we talked about like the secret sauce. And I'm like, I've always suspected that the secret sauce was Donner, and just like the way his interactions were with you kids. Like, when you watch those behind the scenes clips, which were shot by Mick Garris, by the way, for those of you watching at home. But when you watch those clips, you really see Donner is this like grandfatherly type guy who's like, he's having a great time, but like he almost pretends like he's grumpy a little bit, like with these kids around, like just to kind of like get them to be a little bit more like rambunctious, to get them to have a little more fun with it.
Have you watched the video DVD commentary of the Goonies, where Richard Donner's watching with the cast? And even then, you can tell he loves these kids, even though they're adults now. They're still acting like they filmed it yesterday. That was the one thing I always loved about that, because Corey Feldman, I remember this fight him and Corey Feldman had on the DVD commentary, because Richard Donner made it absolutely positive they could not see the ship until on camera they walked, they waded in the water.
Oh, I love this.
And they look, and Corey Feldman's like, no, we saw it a couple days before. Donner's like, no, you didn't. Like, no, we saw it before. We stuck in. He's like, you're a liar, Feldman. I know for a fact you. And they're just going back and forth, like they're real family members. So yeah, absolutely.
Didn't Donner say on the commentary that it's like, I'm never working with kids again?
Well, and you know what's great about that was the whole time he's saying, "Oh, I can't wait to finish this movie. I'm going to go off to Hawaii, get away from you, like meddlesome kids," you know? And so Spielberg, as a prank, he flew all the kids out to Hawaii. So when Donner got to Hawaii, the Goonies were there waiting for him. Like back when there was money for that kind of shit in film.
Right.
There was money for like practical, like what? How many fucking kids flew to Hawaii? 8? Jesus.
Yeah, and they actually made music videos for the movies, like Cyndi Lauper, Good Enough video.
Yes. Oh, yes.
I mean, and we could spend this whole, hour just talking about the Goonies and like why we love it. It's just one of those rare pieces of the 80s that I feel like is as ageless as Pee-wee's Big Adventure and as timeless as movies like that. And, it's not like, doesn't reek of 1980s when you watch it. It's not like, oh, there's the hair scrunchies and there's the perms and there's the mullets and there's the, it's like, no, it's a pretty just classic fucking timeless movie. Yeah. And you could say that about a lot of Donner's films. And, you could say that about his television career. Like he directed a lot of A-list shows for decades. I think from 1960 up until his film career, which didn't really get started until the mid to late 70s.
You could thank Donner for the classic Shatner episode of 20,000 Feet in Nightmare at 20,000 Feet.
Right.
There's a man on the wing of the plane. Yes. Donner shot that. That was one of his first directing gigs. In that immortal classic television history.
And I gotta say that image when he opens the window and that face is pressed right up against the glass, still one of the most powerful images I've ever seen in film. It still scares the shit out. It's just a creepy fucking image. It's so good. I
wonder if he was approached to direct the segment in the Twilight Zone movie instead of George Miller. That would be interesting.
I read that. I actually remember Derek. I think he was busy with something.
Like Lady Hawk?
I actually think it was the Superman debacle. Either that or the Superman, trying to figure out that whole Superman 2 process, whatever it was.
Twilight Zone, the movie, was released in 83. And I think he was already done with Superman.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was replaced. And Superman 2 was released in 80.
Yeah, they screwed him over. The toy, famously.
He was making the toy.
The toy.
That's
another one. That's another one. Jackie Gleason and Richard Pryor that I haven't revisited in a long time, so I don't know really how it holds up. But I loved that as a kid. Like that's.
Yeah.
Have you revisited Ian?
Probably not. Yeah, in 2021, I don't think it really holds up as well as. But I do agree that the concept of the toy can be timeless because it's kind of pointing out the hypocrisy of slavery and Richard Pryor really kind of went into that thing. So I don't think they play it too much anymore though, because I don't think people see beneath that surface value of the toy. But I remember watching that on HBO. They had that like almost every weekend on HBO.
Yeah, I remember watching it on an old channel called Prism. That was like back in the day. That dates us, of course, but it was. They played that quite a bit. And even Lady Hawk was one too that's underrated. That was, from back in that time frame. But it gets a little talked about for Donner because of Lethal Weapon and everything else. But I remember enjoying that film as well. So
Lady Hawk's one I haven't seen. I think I've seen anything but Lady Hawk.
I'd have to revisit Lady Hawk too. But another Donner film I really like is Scrooged.
Oh yes, Scrooge is great. Oh, and it's funny because I remember reading what he said about, because a lot of people who've worked with Bill Murray didn't find the experience to be very enjoyable. And he said directing Bill Murray is like being a traffic cop in Times Square and the lights go out, and like you have to control all the traffic at rush hour in Manhattan and Times Square. So pretty epic. But I do love Scrooge is sneaking its way into becoming like a Christmas classic,
that's exactly what Attila the Hun said. But when he saw his mother, Niagara Falls. That's the line I always remember.
There is some Donner love in the chat already. Our friends over at Movie Squad say one of their favorite movies as a kid was The Goonies, timeless classic from timeless filmmaker. I would definitely agree there. Our good friend Anthony Ramirez says, for me, it was always The Omen. Superman 1 wasn't on his radar till he was older. Anthony makes incredible movie poster mashups for those curious at home, as do I. Our good friends over at Retro Fiend Radio say Conspiracy Theory is a fun, underrated Donner flick. I'm glad someone mentioned it.
Underrated,
there.
yeah, I will give you that.
I appreciate those types of movies more and more the older I get, as I become a tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist. I'm not that crazy. But Movie Squad also says The Omen is an essential horror movie. We wouldn't have the horror ideas we have today if not for that film. Mickey, our good buddy Mickey Torres, often on the show, says one of his favorite Christmas movies is Scrooged. And there's some love for The Omen, and people are going on about Damien and the toy. I will touch more on the chat in a little bit because it's already it's running off. But The Omen I think is one that we should talk about a little bit. Obviously,
classic.
A franchise that sort of went like great and like pretty good and then got pretty bad as soon as Donner wasn't around.
First off, The Omen IV is one of the best TV bad sequels of all time, Chris. You respect that movie.
To be fair, that's the one I haven't seen. I've actually been trying to find a copy of that to watch.
Again, I question your Americanism. That's okay.
Just saying the first two were great.
I've only seen the first one and the remake. Who I forgot who the lead was. I know David Thewlis is in it and gets killed, but who was the lead in the remake? I don't remember.
That was Liev Schreiber.
Liev Schreiber, I believe.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't remember that movie.
Cotton Weary.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll always be Cotton from
Always Be Cotton.
Scream.
Absolutely.
Well, the thing for me, like with Richard Donner, is actually through being a horror fan of how much I connected with Richard Donner was through that. I mean, I think a lot of people came by Donner through either Superman or Lethal Weapon. I'll be honest, for me, speaking of The Omen, but also he produced one of the best TV series of all time, in my opinion, and that's Tales from the Crypt. And, I will always remember that first season of Tales from the Crypt where they had, Walter Hill and Robert Zemeckis directed episodes. But his episode, Richard Donner's, was the one with, I can never say his name, but he was in the Goonies. Joe Pantoliano?
Oh, yeah. Joey Pant.
Joey Pant. Where he got the brain of a cat. And so he has 9 lives. And so he does this stunt where he always is like, getting killed and he comes back to life. And he's telling you all of this being buried. But, the end of, spoiler alert, the secret is, he thinks he has one more life, but he forgot about the cat dying first. And so that's the end of the episode. He's buried alive and he's not going to come back. And that was Donner. And I always remember that episode. And so that's how I came into Richard Donner, was watching Tales from the Crypt. And then Scrooge. I remember actually going to the theater and seeing Scrooge. But, when I really started to think about who Richard Donner was, I think like everybody, it's Goonies, it's Lethal Weapon. But Lethal Weapon 2, I always saw Lethal Weapon 2 before I even attempted to see like the first one.
That movie has a great trailer. Do you remember the trailer?
No.
There's a voiceover.
The first one.
A trailer for Lethal Weapon 2. There's a voiceover, and he's like, this time, and then you see an explosion, and the toilet falls on the car in the street. They're not taking any crap.
Oh, that's right.
That.
Yes,
I remember that. Yeah.
Great trailer.
That's genius.
That's a great trailer tagline for sure. The lethal movies is a series that just builds for me. Like each one, I think they constantly get better. Honestly, I think the best one is the fourth one because you have everything from the first one, plus in the second one you got Joe Pesci, in the third one you got Rene Russo, and the fourth one you added Chris Rock, and you never take any of that away. You always add to it, and by the end you have this epic, huge ensemble. It's almost tempting to have Lethal Weapon go on with like a Next Generation kind of thing or something, just because, but it's just a perfect ending. that like even if Donner was still alive, I would be a little nervous about a Lethal Weapon 5 with him directing, just because like it's so like Lethal Weapon 4 is a really perfect ending. Are you guys friends? No, we're family. Like
I was a huge fan of it because I mean, growing up, I was a huge Bruce Lee fan, and then that opened me up to having at that time to find, we had to find VHSs of like Asian cinema, whether Jackie Chan, and that film introduced American audiences to Jet Li. Yeah. So because like I'd seen Fist of Legend and My Father is a Hero and a lot of his classic Asian films, but I was excited to go to watch that because you got to see Jet Li on display in an American film, and then that's what kind of brought us Romeo Must Die. And so again, Donner he's such. I don't know that there's any producer that has, just like Ian was saying about his influence in television, and then just the things in film. When you think about the films he directed, but then the things he brought to the table with bringing someone like Jet Li to these audiences, bringing things like he's responsible for the X-Men franchise, which also obviously spawned the whole superhero thing, which we hadn't really seen in that way for those X-Men films with Hugh Jackman and all that cast. And then even things like Any Given Sunday, like that again is Oliver Stone, but he produced that, Donner. So I mean, he all around the spectrum of what he has given us for horror, for action, for so many different genres is unparalleled to me. Can't really think of, there's plenty of other Uber producers, there's Bruckheimer and a lot of other people, but Donner really just spanned the whole gamut of so many different genres.
Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't have, I mean, let's be honest, you wouldn't have the superhero franchises of today. Even before his involvement with like X-Men and all this stuff, I mean, we were talking about that on our X-Men show last week, but just this, the Superman movie. Nobody had thought about taking the Superman, to take a comic book and make it into, to be honest, a marketable artistic approach that's taken seriously, but also keeping that, Hollywood mindset of let's make as much money as we can, but how can we make as much money as we can and still have a good movie? And I think Donner, let's be honest, Donner cracked the code on a lot of that.
Absolutely.
He was right place, right time. He did it with that. He also did it with The Omen. How do I make horror acceptable? Because before The Omen, I think The Exorcist did it first, but after seeing what The Exorcist could do, Donner was right in saying, I remember watching the Omen Legacy documentary, and Donner said, don't treat this like a horror movie. Let's treat this very seriously, treat it like a drama, and you'll get better actors to come on board. We'll get Gregory Peck. We'll get Lee Remick. We'll make it so it's marketable to that audience who usually, we're not going to go see a Roger Corman movie. We're going to see, an art film on a Friday. And Donner was just genius with that.
Is that the only horror film he directed?
I mean, unless you count like the TV stuff, and really, The Omen was kind of.
I guess.
But, I mean, he did. I mean,
was more interested in the superhero stuff, I guess.
Yeah,
but like you said, he touched everything. I think we mentioned it before we went live that he directed Sarah T. Portrait of a Teenage Alcoholic with Linda Blair, which is probably her most notable work outside of The Exorcist. And Superman, is something I was talking about this earlier today, that his Superman is like the wheel in the sense that it's the first time one of those things was not a joke, and I was reading about, how he came to be involved in it. And it was the Salkinds, who famously had the rights to Superman. They call him up one day and they're like, have you heard of me? And he's like, no. And they're like, oh, I'm offended, but I own Superman and I'm going to pay you $1 million and it's going to be great. We have a perfect script. I'll send it right over. And then they got a script. He said it was 500 pages. He said he got a hernia lifting it up and to put it on the table. He said he read it and it was terrible. And Donner took the movie to defend Superman from them, from the Salkinds, from this terrible movie they were going to make. They were like, oh yeah, we know how we're going to do the flight. We got test footage already. He's like, really? Let me see it. He looked at his flight, he's like, as long as it's not a guy jumping out a window, like on the TV show, that'll be terrible. Then you cut to him on a table, an invisible table. And they're like, oh no, not like that at all. Of course, that's exactly what they had. So he brought on his own writers. I think, what was it, Chuck Mankiewicz?
Joe Mankiewicz.
Tom Mankiewicz. I'm sorry. But he brought on his own writers to rewrite this thing. And I know there was Mario Puzo had done a draft and stuff like that, but Donner made it what it was. He got Brando. He took a shot on Christopher Reeve. There was pressure for him to cast Sylvester Stallone as Superman. Stallone was coming off of Rocky, and I love Stallone, but come on, Superman? I don't know.
Can you imagine that?
He wanted it though. He wanted the role bad, apparently, and it stung. And what's funny is I think there was honestly some kind of feud between him and Christopher Reeve over this, because I would notice for years, look at any 80s interview with Christopher Reeve, he takes a shot at Rambo. He'll shit on Rambo every chance he gets to be like, I think Rambo's the most ridiculously stupid movies that there ever could make, and I don't ever want to make a movie like that. So I'm gonna go make Superman 4: Quest for Peace. I'm gonna go make a movie with a Dolph Lundgren-ish villain.
Who's a Chippendale dancer
with the great glowing globus.
Yes. The legendary Golden Globus, man. I'm gonna go fight a guy with really intense fingernails.
Jeez.
I develop powers like rebuilding monuments with my eyes.
well, I agree with you, and I don't know if any of you have seen this movie, but I'll tell you one that's forgotten that I remember watching. I still, to this day, think it's a great movie. Did any of you ever see Radio Flyer?
Yeah. Is it
that's Donner too.
Is that Elijah Wood?
It's Elijah Wood,
it's
Lorraine
Ethan
Bracco.
Hawke, right?
No, Ethan Hawke's not in there. No, it's Elijah Wood and the kid from Jurassic Park, and this is before he did Jurassic.
Yeah.
Which
Tom
because
Hanks is in it.
Oh right.
Yeah, and it's Tom Hanks unbilled as the narrator.
Yeah, as the narrator.
And it was actually, I think this movie Spielberg saw this kid in and cast him in Jurassic Park. But Radio Flyer is just this great family movie that I just remember. The one thing I really remember the most is Stephen Baldwin plays this abusive dad, and the way that Richard Donner films him is he never really focuses. He never does this shot, like the close-up shot on the abuse. It's almost this. We'll see him from like this down, and even for a director to do that, I remember seeing Radio Flyer was the first time as a filmmaker. I went, oh, that's interesting how he did that. It's just a credit to Donner's approach as a filmmaker that he would make that choice. But then at this point, you're like, well, this is the guy that did Lethal Weapon 2 and 3 and Superman and Omen. Do we question what he's doing? No, you just let him kind of do his own thing. So
I have to revisit it. I haven't seen it probably since it first came out, and that was during that time of all those movies like The Boy Who Could Fly and a lot of those, very kind of heartwarming, but they had a little bit of an edge to them though with the storylines, like you said, with Baldwin's character and everything. Yeah, and some of them did have those sad endings that. The 90s was just a cool place for movies. If you really look back at the decade of the 90s, there was some really good stuff. I mean, this is a video store, the VHS stores you could go, you still went to there. You didn't have that much options on cable. You still went to the movie theaters to watch this stuff. Like I remember one of the first real movie experiences, because, as a kid, I didn't go to the movie theaters a whole lot. We really couldn't afford it. So I can count the movies I actually went to the theater to see. And I remember one of them was Lethal Weapon 3. My mom wanted to see the new Lethal Weapon movie. And so that was the first one I could see in the theater. And, I remember the opening with, the big screen with the Fire 3 kind of.
Mel Gibson had that moment in like the early 90s. He was like, I think like People magazine like voted him sexiest man of the year and shit. Like the moms loved Mel. Like they crafted They crafted him, dude. The moms were crazy for that mullet,
He was it before Brad Pitt came around and Thelma Louise and and then
he's the only dude who win a fucking Oscar with a mullet.
Legends of the Fall, like that's like before Brad Pitt, Legends of the Fall, like Mel Gibson, you're right, was like, I mean, my aunts, everybody was just. If that movie was on, it didn't matter what it was.
Yes, Bird on a fucking Wire, anything.
From Mad Max all the way on through the Weapons movies.
bird on a wire. Chris, shut your mouth. Oh my God. What is wrong with you, man?
Dude, Mel and Goldie, I'm just saying, it was magic.
I just revisited Tequila Sunrise a few weeks ago, and I didn't remember it at all.
Man.
That one,
I
I watched it like a year ago, and I still don't remember it at all.
I didn't remember it at all. Like him, I knew it was him and Kurt Russell. I just didn't remember the movie at all. Like,
and it's like you almost don't believe it happened because it's like Lawrence Fishburne and Sam Jackson being in a movie together. You're like, no, they weren't. Like, oh shit, they were. Like, fuck. You know, you like almost don't believe it. No,
it's a lot of those movies, but it's so many of those movies, like Running Scared with Gregory Hines and like those. And who was Gregory Hines and
Billy Crystal.
Yeah. Those are just you almost forget that they happened, but they were epic at the time. They even had the Michael McDonald soundtrack, sweet. So it was like
Running Scared.
Does it get any smoother than Michael McDonald? I don't know. I don't know if it does. There's like Rock at the Bottom of a River smooth, and then there's like Michael McDonald smooth. We're talking smooth.
Quote of the night, Chris, right there.
So another Donner film I like is Maverick. And
yes.
By the time I saw that for the first time, I had seen the Lethal Weapon movies numerous times. And I remember laughing out loud when Mel Gibson's character is at a bank and a bunch of robbers come in to rob the bank, and they're wearing masks. And Mel Gibson's looking at this black guy, and he pulls down his mask, and it's Danny Glover. And they just kind of do a double take of each other, kind of referencing their partnership from the Lethal Weapon movies. And like,
no.
Those old winks are the best. Those are the best. So
that
there's a lot of love.
Was amazing. That cast, great movie. James Gardner, Jodie Foster, so great, so great.
Even like the dude, the dealer or like the announcer, or whatever, at the final card game. I just remember like the way he announced that royal flush at the end, like the Queen of Spades, like the Jack of Spades, the King of Spades. Like that dude was jacked, and it was amazing. So there's a lot of love in the chat. The chat is also pretty jacked right now. There's some love for Lady Hawk. Our good friend Dustin Nino from he was on the show recently, and also from Retro Fiend Radio, says Donner hired Michael Madsen to play the dad in Free Willy, and it's actually a nice role where he's kind and warm and not chopping ears off. To which Retro Fiend Radio replies, I knew there was another reason I never saw Free Willy. I need Madsen to chop off ears.
Free Willy. Yeah, he did produce Free Willy.
Oh, Free Willies. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. And also Kyle of Fandom Spotlite says that Lethal Weapon was the precursor to the Fast and the Furious. It's all about family. Anthony Ramirez says Lethal Weapon is a Christmas movie, to which Mickey Torres would agree.
Yes.
Die Hard.
Yeah. Yes.
Die Hard, of course.
I will watch Die Hard and Lethal Weapon every Christmas. You go, you.
There's apparently some talk. Apparently they aired the Superman series. Okay, yeah, they're getting off the wheels on Superman and stuff a little bit. The chat is wild. So yeah, okay. So the chat's taking care of itself at the moment, which is good. There's a lot of love for Lady Hawk. There's a lot of love for Radio Flyer. There's a lot of sassy back and forth stuff, which is good. So I guess the one thing we haven't really talked about in terms of Donner's career is the unfortunate way his partnership with the Superman franchise ended. Basically, they shot Superman 1 and 2. This is pretty famously known stuff. They shot them both together as one epic movie, and they were going to release it, two separate things. In fact, the Salkinds are kind of shady people in the sense that they did this before without contracting people to do two movies. They would split one movie into two. And then there had to actually become a law called the Salkind Clause that you have to contract people for two movies if what you shoot is going to be released as two movies. So they had to make a contract for Donner and for everyone to do Superman 1 and 2 together. They shot about 80-90% of Superman 2 when they said, look, just focus on Superman 1 right now, which he did. Came out, biggest movie ever. And because there was a producer on there he wasn't exactly comfortable with working with, and he said something in an interview, said, well, I don't want to work with this guy again, so we'll have to figure that out. And then they're like, oh yeah, well we'll figure it out without you. And they brought on Richard Lester to finish Superman 2, and because of DGA rules, you have to shoot 70% of a movie to get credit. So they went to great expense and great trouble to reshoot a lot of a movie that was already finished, just to put someone else's name on it. And, you know, as much as we all love Superman 2, it has got a lot of the cool shit, and General Zod, Terrence Stamp is amazing. It's still always going to sting a little bit that it's not Donner Superman 2. And we did get the Donner cut years later, which is, you know, nice, but it's not a fully functioning film. It's sort of like a great bonus material, you know.
Well, I remember it was like, you know, when that Superman Returns came out, you had to really kind of watch the Donner cut to understand what was going on, and that was like when they brought it out. And I remember actually, Derek, you were the first one to actually show me that. You brought over the Donner cut, and I you know, I for years watched the HBO version, you know, the Mark Lester version of, or Richard Lester version of it, where I thought it was fine. I thought it was, you know, you got General Zod. It's a pretty cool movie. But then you watch the Donner cut and it's like, oh, there actually was more to this movie, I guess. But yeah, I agree with you, Chris. It was like they just spent millions and millions and millions of extra dollars unnecessarily, I guess, you know, where he could have just filmed a couple of scenes and
it's almost eerily similar to what happened to Zack Snyder with Justice League, although he eventually got his due diligence and
you're right,
lots of money to finish it.
Yeah.
But in case of Snyder, I think it was more of an artistic difference, difference of vision between him and WB, whereas I think the Salkinds were happy with the film that Donner made, but he said something about their producer, whatever, you know, it was a personality thing. And I think, you know, as it is, Donner gets a lot of credit. The Salkinds probably wanted it, you know, they probably wanted some credit, and they said, we'll fucking do it without this guy. We got this is our project, you know, and look what they did. They ran it into the fucking ground faster than you could flick flies off of shit. You know, Superman 2 was solid, but Superman 3 was fucking garbage. And then they made Supergirl, and that was like really disappointing. No disrespect to Helen Slater, because I know she's watching. We love you, Helen. Come on the show. You killed it. We love Helen Slater here at VCR Redux, but it's not her fault. They didn't make a great film. And then Superman 4, obviously, I mean, Cannon had to come in and pick up the pieces and shit.
Yeah.
I'd say I'd rather watch Cannon's effort than Superman 3 or Supergirl. I'd rather watch Quest for John Kreese with the mulletish Dolph Lundgrenish villain, Nuclear Man. But Donner wanted to make like 10 of these, you know? Like Tim Burton wanted to make a shitload of these Batman movies. And God, the world we could have had. We could be living in such a world where we got more Reeve and more Keaton, more Donner, more Burton. We could have had it all.
Well, if I could say that, you know, there's this great, I believe it's on Gilbert Gottfried's podcast, but Richard Donner came on, I think his show, and they were talking he just talked about his whole career. And if you listen to that episode, you realize this guy, first off, in his late 80s, you know, because this is a couple of years ago, was all there, could remember what he was doing on the set of Wild Wild West. You know, he actually directed the TV pilot for Wild Wild West, and you know, and what I love, he talks about this. He's like, I actually liked doing TV pilots and movies that had never been done before, for that exact reason, where he said, I can create something really kind of cool that nobody has ever seen before, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't go anywhere. That was one of the things I remember him saying. He's like, if a pilot works, the show gets picked up. If it doesn't, your career is fine because nobody sees it. You know, it's like, so why not take the risk as you're making the show? And obviously, if you ever watch Wild Wild West, you know, you know, it's a creative idea, you know, and it worked. The one thing that I also find fascinating is not only do we get, you know, Richard Donner, if you talk about his career, as a man who does Lethal Weapon series, does Assassins, does Lady Hawk, he's also a guy that did a Gilligan's Island episode. You know, this is a career that is, if you could have a bookend of everything that you could possibly, you know, because
Spielberg did Columbo episodes, you know.
Yeah, well, that's why I think it's interesting. You got one end he's doing Gilligan's Island, and the other end he's got a Steven Spielberg production where they're flying people to Hawaii. I mean, you got, you know, this guy really did do some creative stuff. So if you ever get a chance to, please tune into that podcast, because I think you'll hear a voice of somebody that you'll just it seems like it's 3 minutes listening to this guy and it's over an hour, but you're just so enjoying it.
Did Donner direct Assassins?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know that movie was written by the Wachowskis.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
but before Bound and Matrix, that was one of their screenplays.
I didn't know they did anything before Bound. Bound's one of my favorites too.
He produced it. Him and Joel Silver produced it. Yeah, and the Wachowskis, you're right, wrote it. Yep.
Wow. Incredible to think of all the things Donner gave us. There's some talk in the chat as well. Our good friend Alex Bonafonte says, in addition to the 93 episodes of Tales from the Crypt, he also produced the movie Demon Knight, which is incredible.
Yes. Yes.
William Sadler, the fucking high point of his existence is Demon Knight, man. And I'm here for it, dude. I am like a fan of that dude's
freaking Sadler and
dude.
Crazy
Who else
Billy Zane.
Who else could open up a fucking Die Hard sequel with naked Tai Chi in front of a mirror? Like William fucking Sadler is the only guy who could do that.
Well, Derek tried it, but hey, that's.
What do you have, a spy camera in my room?
Oh my gosh, shit!
I think in Demon Knight plays that Filter song, "Hey Man, Nice Shot." That's a really great song. I hope that's the movie I'm thinking of. 1995, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I think that's in it.
If you know
what that song goes, the guy who like screams.
I was gonna say Tales from the Crypt is one of those Donner properties that I would be happy to see continue in a way. And I think there are enough people who could do that. And that was it's almost like a melting pot. To me, it was like Donner and Zemeckis set up this cool place to let filmmakers do whatever they wanted to on cable TV. And so I think if you get like a Mick Garris and someone like that on that level involved that, probably was friends with Donner and like similar spirit, like a kind person who's into that kind of genre filmmaking. I think Tales from the Crypt could come back. It could be the hit thing on HBO Max. I know John Kassir could still voice the Crypt Keeper.
Yes.
Just don't do it CG. Keep it fucking practical or heads will roll. If there's a CG Crypt Keeper, that would be awful. But yeah, I mean, I think Tales from the Crypt, obviously Superman's going to go on forever too, in terms of honoring Donner's legacy. And it's funny, when Superman Returns came out, and you mentioned this, Ian, they really went out of their way to pay a lot of homage to Donner. And at the time, I was against it. I was like, no, you need to create your own thing. Let the Donner films be theirs. Like, it's time to, take this baby into new territory. I'm sick of the apple pie Chevrolet, like old fashioned kind of stuff. But now I'm almost kind of reversing that stance that I think we could put, a little bit of the hope back in Superman, a little bit of the optimism, a little bit of the positivity. He's a beacon of light for all of mankind. And, it doesn't, need to be so dark and so moody. You can do that in the later installments, but it would be cool to see a Superman film that was optimistic or, kind of positive in tone.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Not that I think movies are too dark and that's the problem. I don't think anything's ever quite that simple, but it would be cool to see some of that come back, because I know it has bothered other people more than me for quite a number of years now, that the Superman movies are dark and moody now, and that's okay, but as long as Superman himself is true to the character, he's got to be the blue Boy Scout.
Oh yeah, well, I'm getting Richard Donner and Henry Cavill together would have been great.
Oh my God!
Again, nothing against Zack Snyder. Honestly, I just imagine how that would have gone. I think it would have been a pretty cool idea.
I think Zack's an incredible visual filmmaker, and I never had any problems with the visuals in his movies. The scripts were, which were not written by Zack Snyder. A lot of them had some shit kind of moments, but overall I like even the new DC stuff. I'm a dork for all this shit, and the reason I am a dork is because I saw Donner's Superman when I was a little kid, and I believed so much in that on VHS on one of those vinyl screen plastic screen TVs of the 80s with the thing probably weighed 4,000 pounds. But yeah, man, that stuff made those I remember the moment in Superman where Lois falls off the building or the helicopter or whatever, and Superman flies, dude, that shit had me on the edge of my seat as a little kid. I was terrified for her when she would fall and shit like that. I mean, it's not, you look back and it's not perfect. No movie's perfect. Like there's some weird shit where like Lois Lane's like narrating an internal monologue poem about Superman while they're flying together. It's like, all right, this is a little strange, but like shit, compared to the joke of shit that we got before, you gotta let in the bad with the good a little bit.
What's interesting about Superman and Batman as well is the actor who's playing the superhero doesn't get top billing. I think Superman, Marlon Brando and Gene Hackman were credited before Christopher Reeve, and I believe it was the same for Batman, where Jack Nicholson was before Michael Keaton on the credits.
Yes, but not on returns. I think Keaton was above.
Well, yeah,
DeVito and Pfeiffer, but
same with the Superman sequels. Christopher Reeve was now top dog, I think.
Yeah, he was probably billed above Terrence Stamp and Sarah Douglas, I think her name is, who played Ursa, who I just, the line I always, and I gotta imagine this is a Donner moment, that like Superman, the way she says his name. Absolutely classic. But
that's not even her best role. Meatballs 4, Meatballs to the Rescue. She's the villain.
Excuse me?
Blasphemy.
IV.
Not
Blasphemy. 4.
It's a 4. It's not IV. It's a 4. It's Meatballs 4. Meatballs to the Rescue.
The first two had Roman numerals, or the first two sequels. I hate when they do this to me. I gotta go Roman numerals all the way, or non-Roman numerals all the way. You just gotta pick a lane and stick to it. Like, Look Who's Talking. They at least kind of stuck with their like weird sequel,
Or just use fractions like the Naked Gun movies.
Well,
33
get crazy with it, right?
That was also a time when they did sequels like it was nothing. It was, we get it now, but back then with Police Academy and a lot of the ones you just talked about, there's ones I look back now and I don't even remember that they had a fourth or a fifth, and some of those franchises. And as we move forward, obviously there's 10 or 12 Children of the Corns and so many of these movies that just kept going on.
17,000 Howling movies.
Exactly. There's Howling movies that I didn't know existed. There's franchises that just started way back in the 80s, but the IPs, I guess, they just continued to, even like Leprechaun, a lot of those movies just continued to where now, like they're some of them are on 10 and 12. And have even superseded some of the Halloweens or some of the bigger known franchises. But it is crazy what you were saying about the Roman numerals. When you were saying that, I was remembering the different police academies and how they, like, we would call it jumping the shark now with some of the stuff. But I mean, the first one's obviously a classic, and then you go from there. I don't remember as much, but
how dare you say Miami Beach? Police Academy 5, Miami Beach is bad. How dare you, sir?
I would not dare say anything bad about police, because it's something I would revisit. I would say something bad about like Dream a Little Dream 2 or something like some of those movies that just
only in relation to how good Dream a Little Dream 1 is. That's the problem.
Exactly.
That Dream a Little Dream, it's like RoboCop 2. It's like you can't drop off in quality that much that fast. Yes. It's jarring. It's hard to take.
That's another one too. RoboCop. Exactly. Just literally last week, I had it was on cable or whatever, and I didn't even know what it was until RoboCop showed up, because I had forgotten that Peter Weller wasn't. That's RoboCop to me, Peter Weller. Yeah. So when that was on, I was like, what is this? And I still saw Karen Allen, and I was like, but I did not remember anything at all about RoboCop 2. It was just it was just jettisoned out of my mind that it even happened, but
and 3 as well.
And 3,
not Karen Allen, Nancy Allen.
Nancy Allen.
Right.
Yes.
It's usually me or Ian who does the name flubbing on the show, so don't worry about that.
I'll correct.
But of course, since we mentioned Meatballs 4,
I like Frank Spielberg. Thank you very much. Okay. All right, back to Steve Donner.
So, but there's some, of course, Retro Fiends calling you out, Ian. They say Ian pulls out Meatballs 4. That one's with Fell Dog 2. They're calling you out.
Right.
your secret Feldog love here.
No, you're calling me out.
You can't mention Meatballs 4
awesomeness
without Feldog taking it over, and that always brings you back to Donner, of course.
That's right. And it's Meatballs 4, Meatballs to the Rescue. We've got to get this right. You say the entire title if you're going to say the movie.
That's probably why Feldman is in The Lost Boys, because of the Goonies, right?
Oh yeah,
probably, yeah, most likely. And there's also some talk in the chat of apparently Christopher Reeve did an episode of Tales from the Crypt where they're selling human steaks at a restaurant.
Yeah, I've seen
one of the best ones.
Thank you, what's cooking? That's a great episode. Yeah.
There's a lot of love for that. People are like, oh, that one's gnarly and stuff in the chat. So
very good.
And it's also some love for Nancy Allen. Anthony Ramirez says, man, she was so smoking hot and dressed to kill. Shout out to De Palma.
Wow.
We'll definitely do a De Palma episode on VCR Redux one of these days. I've been just in a crazy De Palma phase lately. And this, the news of Donner's passing is probably one of the only things that could pull me out of that and like get into a Donner phase. So, I mean, the Lethal Weapons, I pretty much watch them religiously whenever they're on cable, which is every single day of my life. I watch them, and it's always a marathon. They never play just one of them anymore. They always play all 4 of them.
But let's be honest. How many of us desperately want Lethal Weapon 5?
But I wouldn't say desperately.
I do, man. I want Lethal.
You would still do it without Donner?
Here's the problem. I don't think it would be the same. 100% I agree with. But I do agree if you have, Mel Gibson and Danny Glover and the whole team back together, you can minus one part if the whole is all still there. You'll feel it. There's no doubt about it. But do I think there should be a Goonies 2?
Not really. That makes as much sense as an ET to me.
Yeah, kind of in a way. Like it's a good movie as is. Just rewatch it.
Goonies 2. At this point in time, with Donner gone, I feel like it really should have happened in 1987 or not at all. With everyone back, just a little smidge older, and the adventures get like a little bit more cooler as a result.
Because now it would just be Stranger Things searching for gold or something of that nature, and we already kind of know, we've seen it, it's been done at its pinnacle. So I mean, that's kind of what it would be. Lethal Weapon, I mean, again, we have seen plenty of older Stallone reboots, and it really kind of depends on if there was something that he left, because there has been a lot of talk from the different reunions, that the different scripts that have come through, that they have something recent that was going to get greenlit. So if there was something that had his blessing, then I mean, who knows? I mean, it's not something that I need, but again, it's especially since they are. I mean, Mel's definitely in his 60s, correct? And Danny Glover may be 70 by this point, and so again,
I mean, and then
it would be heavy on. It would probably be heavy on. It would probably be heavy on the next generation, which is again, they're just like with Ghostbusters and with other things. It's how much of is that going to be Chris Rock? Is that going to be Joe Pesci, who's retired? Probably not. And so if you're bringing in a lot of other people, it just kind of depends on, is it really going to be authentic to Lethal Weapon, or is it going to be the next generation of their sons or something that's different? I don't know that I don't need that. So that for me it's different, because we know Stallone is going to go out there and even at 60, 70 is going to do the stunts and be Rocky and be Rambo, but are Mel and Danny going to jump off on cars and do that stuff? I don't know that they're going to do that. So at this point,
well, they had the TV show,
because he was pretty badass in Bloodfather and some of those movies that he's done recently. So who knows? But
they had the TV show, but I didn't watch any of that.
I refuse to watch the TV show. Damon Wayans is too young and cool still to be Murtaugh. Get out of here with that. God damn it.
That's a sequel I want. Give me Major Payne 2, you
yes.
Give me, and Brandon will appreciate this, give me The Last Boy Scout too. Well, no, not without Tony Scott though. It's another one,
That would be interesting. Yes, Tony's gone too. Rest in peace, Tony Scott. But that would be interesting in modern day with him, Bruce Willis and him, and Danielle Harris, like that.
Shane Black directed. Yes. He wrote the first one. I could see him directing the sequel to Last Boy Scout.
Yeah,
that's true. That could be. I'm all for Shane Black doing anything. Yeah. I love Shane Black. He's probably my favorite screenwriter of all time. Just so many classics: Monster Squad, Lethal Weapon. The list is pretty endless there as well.
Predator.
Well, yeah, but he was in the original and he was great in it. And he was there to, by the studio to watch John McTiernan and make sure he knew what he was doing. By Joel Silver.
Yeah, Chris, and fairies fart. Like, we get it. All right, like, not good. All right, Jesus.
All right. Is there anything else, from the legacy of Donnerland that you would want to see continue? Do you guys want like a Lady Hawk reboot? Do you want more Maverick, more conspiracy theory?
Maverick 2 would actually be kind of cool. I can't lie to you on that.
With Mel being the James Garner now.
Well, here's what I hate, and I honestly I want to call it the Coming to America syndrome. Like, right. If you're gonna, and I've talked about this before, I was entertained by Coming to America, but I felt like it was a film written by somebody who watched that movie every single day and gave me a fan script, and they greenlit a fan script. Like, at least with Lethal Weapons, in a weird way, it was different every time.
Different writers every time, yeah.
Different writers, they added something to it, they made it different, they had some connecting tissues, but it was its own movie. And I think if you're gonna do, like, that's why I feel like if we did a Goonies movie, another Goonies 2, I think it would be like a rehash of the first movie, just with their children. And then, here's the adults, here's adult chunk now, here's adult, and that wouldn't be good. It needs to be its own thing. And maybe that's what Donner fought for so many years, because he always seemed like a smart guy. And I think maybe that's probably why he said this Lethal Weapon 4 or 5 script. Like, no, it's not different. That's Lethal Weapon 4 Part 2. Like, that's not what we want. We want something new.
Right.
But Maverick 2 would be the one that I'd be okay with, because you could have Mel Gibson now as the older guy and stuff like that. But I don't know if that connects with Donner. I think that's more of just, if they did it, it'd be kind of cool.
My money's on Tales from the Crypt and Twilight Zone. I mean, obviously Superman and Omen are going to be around. Those are franchises that are not going to go quietly into the night. But yeah, I mean, those, I'd be cool with that. I say let Lethal and Goonies just be Donner perfect, and don't fuck with the secrets. Don't try and reverse engineer it, because he is the secret sauce, I think, on those, on probably almost everything, even like Lost Boys, like
exactly.
Look at the way those sequels came out. I'm sure he wasn't involved in the thirst of the tribe.
And that was something that could have been, like, if he was, it could have, there
Oh, we got a little bit of freeze going on.
We lost one. Man down.
Stories amongst my circle of friends that were kind of piecemealing things.
There you're back. There you're back.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Sorry. We got a little freeze action for a minute there. So there's also some cool stuff in the chat. People just spitballing ideas about Lethal Weapon, and also Mickey telling people to ask Ian about Captain Planet. But some talk Joe Pesci's personal injury attorney. Murtaugh's the commissioner now. I don't know if that alone is worth revisiting, but I'd love to hear fan theories, fan ideas all days on Lethal Weapon. Like, I don't want it to die, but sometimes things have to. Sometimes they already bastardized it with a TV show. It, probably needs some time to breathe. But I think between, Tales from the Crypt, Twilight Zone, Superman, Omen, there is a lot. I mean, Richard Donner shaped the legacy and like the currency of American film in a way that very few directors have. And he touched almost every genre: television, drama, comedy, action. I don't think there's anything I can think of that the guy didn't do. So hopefully Hollywood picks up the ball, runs forward with with the legacy of Donner in a respectful way, something we can all be proud of. But I think that just about does it for us, on honoring the legacy of Richard Donner. Do you guys have anything, Derek, Brandon, anything coming up you want to let the people at home know about? Any projects you want to tease?
No, not anymore because of the pandemic. I was working on stuff, but that's all still on pause, so I don't really have anything coming out personally.
Brandon, anything you got upcoming in the works?
I have, the film Not For Nothing you mentioned in the beginning. That's finishing up post, hopefully next month, and then it'll do a festival circuit, hopefully, like some of the bigger festivals, so knock on wood. Also trying to get the Seasons project finished up. That's the one that has Reggie Bannister and Felissa Rose and Eric Friedman and quite a few like horror genre, like icons in it, and we shot some of that last year in California, and then we're going to shoot the rest of it once we get that all figured out. And then I'm finishing up a feature right now too that I'll divulge more information about, like in a press release coming up soon. There's a lot more things upcoming. It's just like Derek said, the pandemic has pushed a lot of things just because of SAG and talent but now with like a lot more vaccinations and things, a lot more doors are opening, and projects are kind of getting started up that'll kind of get started more in the fall and everything. So yeah, it should be. I'm looking forward to I worked quite a bit through the tail end of the pandemic from October through March. With a lot of the PPE tests up the nose, unfortunately, every other day on sets or whatever, but which was annoying until I got the vaccination. But yeah, it'll be cool to just kind of go back and full time and be on set directing, or also the acting thing too. That like I said, I had the privilege to work with you, Chris, on. That's called High Fear, I believe.
Are we allowed to talk about it? Are we allowed to dish it?
Oh yeah, I mean they have it out.
Okay,
yeah, they have the website. They have the pages out. Yeah, they're because that's gonna go on the festival circuit too. I actually talked to. I messaged with Brad Sykes from the company, and he said that they were finishing. This was a couple months ago, and they were finishing up post, and so that horror anthology will be out sometime on the festival circuit, either the later part of this year or going into next year. So both of you and Chris, you and I are both a part of that. So that's exciting
I can't wait. I can't wait for that to get out there. And again, plug your work in it a little bit. Just getting to be on set and watch you every day was incredible. Seeing what we've seen of the finished product is nothing short of mind blowing, man. Just even from everything to on top of everything else, I didn't even know you had hair. Because you're always wearing a hat. And I was like, oh, maybe he's got hair loss like me or something, And then I see this like gorgeous head of hair when you're in the thing. I'm like, oh my God, I would never wear a hat any day of my life. But you look good in hats either way. So, but everything about that was shocking and awesome and great. And shout out to the director Tony.
Yeah, and that was what was kind of cool about it is that it was. Absolutely love Tony. Yeah, we'll definitely see him at the horror cons.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that just about does it for tonight, guys. Be sure to tune in Fandom Spotlight tomorrow at our regularly scheduled time as we attempt to wheeze the juice and breathe new life into the Encino Man franchise with our good friend Aiden Gonzalez from Staunch TV. In the meantime, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe. Fandom Spotlight, Hollow Knight Network, Pop Culture Punk, Saint Center Entertainment as well, I believe. Also want to let you guys know, Monday we have the finale of Loki discussion, followed by the Space Jam 2 panel, which I will be on, as well as our good buddy Carmelo Mickey Torres. So lots of cool stuff to stay tuned for, guys. Till then, back up those Betamax, rewind those later discs, and we'll see you at the movies.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.